Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with Danger Girl / G.I. Joe. With the help of the small band of spies, the Joes found out the president that had halted their operations was in fact an imposter, as well as finding out Cobra's plans for those stolen World War II-era missiles, all thanks to Abbey Chase infiltrating enemy ranks. When it seemed the captured Scarlet and Flint were about to be executed, she decided to pause her own escape to free them. But this turned out to be a trap set by Zartan, revealing her as a double agent. Issue 4's cover completes the three-part image from the previous installments, but the alternate is really just a cover from G.I. Joe number 2, which I reviewed last year, from 11 years before this crossover. I haven't been able to find any reason for this. It could be a scheduling thing. J. Scott Campbell wasn't able to provide a different cover due to time or workload, despite him doing covers for other issues, and maybe they didn't want to break the theme of his covers by having another artist do one, even though the artists on this book have mimicked Campbell's style with great accuracy. But whatever the case, it's also a pretty misleading one given the context. This cover worked in the past because the story it was associated with actually involved Destro usurping the Commander's authority, whereas that doesn't happen in this book. Destro and Cobra Commander have a weird codependency thing going on. CC bungles up his plans so many times until Chrome Cheeks finally gets fed up and pulls a mutiny. Then when his plans fall apart, his tolerance for the Commander's ineptitude gets refreshed just in time for him to take power again, and the cycle renews itself. Pick up from last issue, where Abbey Chase has gone from being held at knife point to being thrown through glass to a lower floor. Man, Cobra employee reviews are intense. She tries telling Zartan that no, she works for Cobra, honest and for truly, but since she chose to try rescuing the Joe instead of escaping, and she basically admitted it to him when he was in disguise, this claim doesn't work. Surprise, surprise. He readies his knife again, which he's totally going to use this time, I guess because there are no windows to throw her through first, and he snarks that the Joes will be joining her soon, and she's all, "Sooner than you think," as she slams her heels into the control panel of a nearby door, causing a critical error that opens it up to reveal Flint, who proceeds to sock Zartan in the face, even knocking out a tooth, a scene that was shown on the credits page for some reason. Come on, comic spoilers! A G.I. Joe punching someone from Cobra? That's so unexpected. It really should have been a surprise. I kid, but it does feel like an odd choice. It does kind of spoil that Flint saves Abbey from her predicament, though it's a pretty minor spoiler and not that huge a deal. Anywho, suddenly there's a bunch of smoke as Scarlet walks out of her cell, calling Zartan out. He now appears as Duke, insisting that she trusts the villain is gone, as another blade secretly springs from his sleeve via a hidden mechanism. But not being that stupid, the redhead isn't falling for it, and kicks him in the face. As silly as Abbey seemed, trying to keep her charade going given the circumstances, Zartan's attempt was even dumber. Even if you ignore where all that smoke came from, does he think that Scarlet was just checking her phone up to now? Isn't Flint, right there, not disabled or incapacitated, and able to say, "Hey, that's Zartan"? It would have made more sense if he had changed into Flint, a Joe that's there, to at least try and confuse the ginger, right?
Stupid! You're so stupid!
Maybe he'd have had more luck if he tried Snake Eyes and kept his mouth shut. And in case this is a continuity where he and Scarlet are a thing. Also, what's up with this kick sound effect? Quack sounds like a duck that needs a cough drop. As Zardy goes tumbling down this odd chasm, O'Hara asks if what they overheard was true, that the blonde is working with G.I. Joe, and Chase confirms, with the injuries to prove it, and asks for her bag. Flint obliges, but decides to invade her privacy by pulling out her clothes as she begins undressing.
"What is all this stuff? Who are you? There's just a bunch of makeup kits in here and... Wait a minute. You're part of something worse than Cobra. You're with Mary Kay, aren't you?"
She tosses her tattered serpent-themed trousers in his face, as Scarlet looks on in shock, though I'm not sure why, unless it's her just changing in front of them, as it's just her trademark outfit, while she introduces herself as Abbey Chase of Danger Girl. standing at as saucy an angle as she can to show off her assets both front and back, which probably can't be great for her spine for too long. As they sneak through the base, the spy catches them up on the story so far. 2 of the stolen missiles are being prepped to strike Beijing and Moscow, the third being kept to make more like it, and 2 Joe teams are being deployed to destroy the homing beacons and stop the missiles from hitting their targets. One is being led by another Danger Girl, and Flint seems skeptical that this other spy knows what she's doing, but Chase assures him that Sydney always has a plan. She also had a plan when she decided to manage an Outback Steakhouse, make it more authentically Australian, but corporate didn't want to shell out the money to headline the foul-mouthed Randy Feltface. Sydney's plan in Russia is to not die, as in between issues, she, Roadblock, and CoverGirl have traded in their skis for a zip line, managing to avoid enemy fire as they close in and drop onto the train. It feels just a skosh discontinuous, but in the end, it's no big deal that we didn't see them actively set this up. Just assume that they shot a line which got the enemy's attention and made with the zipping. They narrowly make it, with CoverGirl saving Sydney from slipping off the last car, and they're both noticed by Cobra soldiers inside. They open fire, breaking the window, but the ladies have maneuvered out of the way, as Roadblock surprises the goons from their 6.
Who wants a body massage?
Okay, Roadblock, we get it. You're not just a physical powerhouse and a talented trumpet player, but a master of shiatsu as well. Stop showing off! Well, maybe not quite a master, since his idea of massage is apparently punching this guy in his junk.
Gene, don't hit him in the crotch! Yes, hit him in the crotch!
As he dispatches the enemies out the newly opened window, Major Blood spots them on security monitors in the front car, decrying Destro's plan as he holds the beacon and orders his men to get the Joes off the train immediately. In Beijing, Jinx gets a visual on Firefly and tells Johnny Barracuda over comms that he's likely not alone. I'm guessing she means besides the henchman right next to him. Johnny is on the roof of a domicile, using a winch device to lower Sonya inside, repeating to her how the Cobra saboteur is probably rolling with some secondary operatives, which Sonya can confirm, as a room full of Cobra ninjas spot her and ready their attack.
Why did it have to be ninjas?
Because the Terracotta Warriors aren't back from the cleaners yet. Her rope is cut and Johnny dives in shooting to back her up. They're being overwhelmed with the CIA guy asking where their ninja is, which I guess was Jinx's cue to bust through the window at that moment for the assist. Blood contacts Destro at the Cobra base about the Joes, but is just told to deal with them, like he's got any choice, and asks why they're even there. They fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. Have you not heard the theme song? Cobra Commander storms in, accurately blaming Abbey Chase's interference for all this, and wants everyone after her.
I want a double-crossing head.
With the outfit you guys put her in, I'm surprised you looked up high enough to notice she had one. Speaking of, the spy and her Joe allies are running from various goons, but hit kind of a wall, lacking the firepower to overtake the ones ahead of them, and unable to turn around. An explosion from the other room takes out the door, and when Chase draws her weapon on whoever may be left, it turns out to be Snake Eyes, redirecting her gunshot away from his head, and resumes firing on the enemy forces below him. And it looks like the other extraction team members, Stalker and Lowlight, are behind Abbey all of a sudden. Not sure where they came from, unless this is an error, because a few panels later, when Abbey, Scarlet, and Flint are moving across the walkway, guns ablazing, you can only make out a silhouette that's probably supposed to be Stalker, even though I'm not sure who or what he's supposed to be shooting at. It's pretty awkward if you ask me. I know they're not as popular characters as Snake Eyes, but this sequence makes them feel like such an afterthought. It wouldn't be the end of the world to give some lesser-known Joes some proper intros to a scene, would it? This page is split into parallel scenes that not only play out much the same, but have near-identical framing. Blood and Firefly activate their beacons, which are nearing completion, are each confronted by a Danger Girl, the sisters of the group no less, and then go on the offensive. It's an interesting choice, if nothing else, showing that the stakes are about equal regardless of location. And when each spy evades the gunfire, or grenades, and counterattacks to destroy the beacons, it has a very cinematic flow to it. A little weird how Firefly doesn't bleed when he takes an arrow through his hand, though. Even with the sound effect obscuring it, I don't think he lucked out and it safely went between his fingers. Cobra Commander swears to make Chase pay for this failure, as Destro suggests they evacuate before the Joes come knocking at their door in full force.
Let them come into firing range!
Commander, you already tried defeating G.I. Joe with an obscure skeet shooting competition. Not only did that fail, we had to give Lady J that 24-karat solid gold trophy, which, I remind you, set our finances back considerably.
Baroness's dialogue suggests she's surprised that there's a third beacon, which is operational and acquiring its target, but her expression looks to be one of sinister satisfaction, almost like she knew this already and is glad it's working out. But hey, maybe that's just me. On the U.S.S. Flagg, Duke expresses his gratitude to the Danger Girls for their work and has commissioned their transports back, but they may take time, since all hands are prepping for their attack on Cobra's base. Silicon Valerie asks why not use Marine 1 to snag their people, but Lady J clarifies that's a replica made by Cobra, used by Zorana when she was posing as the president. It can't be trusted. And I have to imagine those Secret Service agents along with her were probably Cobra too, but those guys just kind of disappear and don't get mentioned. And this is when we see that third beacon, projecting the iconic snake emblem and indicating it's acquired its target. This is a really good twist. It continues to utilize earlier plot elements to raise the stakes for our heroes even further after the initial threat seems neutralized. I just wish the beacon didn't look like it was staring everyone in the face like that, since you would think they would have searched the helicopter after Zorana's ruse was exposed. Even if they did and someone saw it and assumed it was part of the craft, wouldn't eyebrows be raised after Abbey's hollow call, where they'd have to have been informed what the beacons look like? Anyway, at the Evil HQ, the third missile is launched, after giving it their own personal paint job, of course. Abbey insists she and the Joes go to the lab to stop it, but Snake Eyes halts them when a single man walks through the door, much to Chase's confusion. As two rival ninjas draw their swords, Scarlet tells her that if there's anything more dangerous than that missile, it's Storm Shadow. Sure, that weapon can reduce a metropolitan city to rubble, but Storm Shadow was executive producer on that Snake Eyes origin movie from a couple years back. He's why it didn't do very well. Now you know, and knowing is half the line. Issue 5's cover kind of echoes the first, but now Abbey is in her usual outfit with different Joes and Danger Girls behind her. A nice kind of rhyming between the first chapter and the last. The alternate is a bit more action-oriented, with Storm Shadow attacking Snake Eyes from above, and I'm pretty sure this is another reused cover, since the scene is set in some tropical neighborhood, and Cobra Commander holds his son Billy hostage with Kamakura in a defensive stance, and neither of the latter two characters appear in this story. I went through the 40-odd issues of the Image Devil's Due series that I didn't review. None of them resembled this, so maybe it's an alternate cover of one of those issues that I just happened to overlook. I don't feel like looking again, so moving on. Valerie has, somehow, discovered the Flagg has been targeted by Cobra's final missile, and it has too many countermeasures to simply shoot down. They can at least find out how long they have to impact once they find the homing beacon it's following, which I guess she's used her tablet to find on the false Marine 1. Val can't take all the credit. She just used the Find Enemy Sabotage app. At the Cobra base, Snake Eyes is keeping Storm Shadow busy until more Joes arrive, and the squad that's already there can deal with any more missiles. Namely, with lots of explosions, as Stalker demonstrates with his grenade. Abbey suggests taking out the enemy ninja from long range, since they have guns against his sword. So what could he do? I guess Stormy heard that and was real offended, because he throws several shuriken that narrowly miss the spy. Scarlet goes with Stalker to take out the missiles, leaving Chase to keep an eye out for the forthcoming Joes. I know you've never met any of them before, so watch for anyone shooting red lasers. Those will be our guys. Back at sea, Duke finds the beacon, and Valerie stops him from just shooting it, as it's their best chance at stopping the missile headed towards them, as she connects it to her tablet via a USB cord.
Thank Henry Ford for standardized parts.
Zorana, being escorted by Lady J, I presume to evacuate, says it's too late to do anything with the weapon locked on their coordinates, but the tech-minded teen shows her up by accessing the propulsion system and cutting out the engine with a signal spike, sending the threat into the ocean. It's SpongeBob's problem now. Everything seems dandy, disaster averted, except as Zorana gives a knowing smile, the missile detonates underwater, sending a massive tidal wave towards the ship. Another scene that was given away by the credits page, and another odd choice if you ask me, especially since if they wanted to break away from that one panel they used for the first 3 issues, They could have picked something more innocuous and less spoilery from this one. The wave hits on a 2-page spread, and the terrible enormity of the scene is excellently captured. Kudos to the artists on this. Jay narrowly saves Valerie from slipping overboard, and the ship soon stabilizes, then commends the young lady for preventing a far more devastating attack. Duke contacts Abbey, informing her that she and the Joes will have to settle things at Cobra HQ on their own, as the attack squad will be too busy rescuing those who fell overboard. We could try calling Aquaman for help, but we basically blew up a chunk of his backyard and probably killed all the fish in a 50-mile radius. I don't think he's going to be doing us any favors. The remaining missiles are rigged with explosives, and Duke and Lowlight are in the process of commandeering a ride out. They just need to open the hangar doors, which Abbey will take care of, after she's dealt with the Baroness and Destro, the latter pointing a gun at her back. Despite the trouble Chase has caused, they offer her a chance to pledge true allegiance to Cobra, save herself, and leave the Joes to die. Okay, why? Sure, Abbey is skilled, but what makes them think that even if she agreed, that they could trust her? Wouldn't any of them, given this same option, just feign loyalty long enough to get out alive, then do the old betray and dash at the earliest opportunity? Or is this meant to be a ploy? Hope she agrees so that they can get their revenge later when she least suspects it. The spy responds with a quick turnaround and a shot to Destro's metal dome. She gets the doors open, telling Flint to get the plane in the air quickly as she dodges a pair of Destro's wrist-mounted rockets and lands on top the craft. She's soon followed by Baroness, attempting to knife her in the face, so Chase tells Flint to swing the chopper's tail any which way. He does, and not only shakes the villainess off, but also the catwalk with the ninja fight happening, sending Storm Shadow falling as well. As Scarlet and Stalker make their way to the ride home, Cobra Commander busts through a wall in a tank, opening fire on them and causing Scarlet to drop the detonator to the bombs they had planted.
Hey, you guys want to press that button? It doesn't blow up your base or anything. It actually calls in the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders.
Weird little error. It's clearly in her left hand when she's wobbling, but just as Snake Eyes grabs her, the artwork makes it look like it fell out of her right hand. Maybe she just switched hands for no reason at the last second. Abbey leaps off the craft and slows her descent with the Baroness's knife, cutting her way down a Cobra Flagg. The Joe's ride takes a hit from the Hiss tank, which must have really good armor since it doesn't explode or crash or anything, as Abbey assures them she's got her own way out after finding the detonator. She makes her way out on an ATV, looking as if madness had finally taken her, with the commander following and firing away. Just as his goon gets a lock on her, Chase presses the detonator, causing an explosion that starts breaking the dam they've been driving on, with CC and his tank the first to fall over. Before Abbey ends up following suit, she drives up off the crumbling debris, leaps off the ATV, is caught by Scarlet, tethered to the chopper, and they safely escape the destruction of Cobra's HQ on a splash page.
I thank God every day I didn't get exploded.
Worst part is, Destro was late on paying their evil lair insurance and was going to send out the check that morning. Looking a lot worse for wear, the Osprey manages to make it to the Flagg, landing and its heroic occupants filing out, some pretty banged up themselves. Abbey mentions to Scarlet that she never really asked for help, thinking that she could end the threat of Cobra all on her own. She must have hit her head during the escape, and forgot that she's the one who suggested this alliance of her team and the Joes in the first place. The Ginger assures her that while she very nearly managed what she had intended, even a Danger Girl could use some help from friends, especially the kind that Abbey has made, as she exits the chopper to the Joes saluting her accomplishments, while they and the rest of Danger Girl surround her and celebrate the victory.
Now I know. And knowing is half the battle.
Oh, half the battle! Why was I thinking bologna sandwich? In the remains of the Cobra base, Storm Shadow and Baroness fish Destro out of the water when they spot the commander on a nearby bank. While they've been beaten this time, he swears they'll return with a vengeance, as the comic ends on a sequel-teasing question mark, and CC's shattered faceplate revealing a purple-skinned face beneath it. He's going to hold his breath until they give him world domination. It's not going to work. I already tried. Lousy lung capacity. That was Danger Girl / G.I. Joe, and I thought it was a pretty fun read. The plot seems taken right out of the cartoon, with some new discovery usurped by Cobra to threaten the world. The stakes are well defined, and the twist of the third missile was really good. Nothing too different about these iterations of the G.I. Joe characters, though Cobra Commander definitely seemed less like the maniacal goofball and more a real menace, if overzealous to the point of self-destruction. Not sure why he killed that one underling, other than for the story, so Abbey's reaction would act as a subtle clue for Zartan. It at least made his subterfuge to bring her spying to light make sense, without seeming just out of the blue. Though it doesn't quite explain why she thought doubling down on the act would have spared her. How would she explain away trying to free a prisoner to a first-hand witness who is posing as that prisoner? I suppose she could have tried claiming she was pretending to bust him out so she could lead him to the firing squad or whatever as one final insult before he got axed. Maybe that would have sold better if she was live streaming at the time. It does overlook a lot of things, big and small, like if Zorana got rescued with the overboard Joes, or somehow escaped, or if her brother Zartan survived that fall. How did the spies know that the Prez was a fake, and why did Sydney suddenly change her plans in Russia? It mentioned there could have been more goons in the area that they weren't seeing, but why was ziplining to the train any better than derailing it? It also feels a tad convenient that CoverGirl just so happened to run into Johnny Barracuda while Abbey was undercover for that undetermined amount of time, so that her comrades would have a way to circumvent orders from the not Prez. Yeah, Johnny's a horn dog, and it's probably in character for him to casually mention secret spy stuff trying to impress a woman, though granted that's just my guess. But what if he hadn't? Maybe in a show of solidarity and camaraderie, Danger Girl would have contacted the Joes somehow after Flint and Scarlet got taken, and things would have played out more or less the same. Also, I personally find it pretty funny that Courtney left Johnny's card in what seems like a junk jar, showing the guy is not quite as charming as he likes to think. There's a lot of good action between the firefights and some hand-to-hand combat, with some humor that can range from corny to a little tongue-in-cheek. While the Danger Girl team definitely contributed to the fight in a considerable way, I didn't feel like non-DG readers would really know anything about the spies from this story. Sonya doesn't really distinguish herself that much. Deuce gives a couple of orders, but not much beyond that. And at most, it shows how casual Sydney is about enhanced interrogation and changing plans on the fly. Abbey feels almost generic beyond using her feminine wiles and some innuendo, which at the very least they circumvent expectations and doesn't always work. The art leaned far more into cheesecake than when Danger Girl crossed over with Batman, with a lot of saucy outfits and poses meant purely for fan service, though I will give the artists credit for showing enough restraint to not have Abbey's chest literally pressed against the windshield when they had the opportunity. I get that it's probably part of the satire of the Danger Girls series, not meant to be taken that seriously, and I don't really have a problem with the art, but there were times where some characters looked odd for reasons I can't quite explain. Like here, where it looks like they were basing Hawk off a specific 1940s actor but stopped halfway, and Duke maybe turning into some kind of Muppet. That's what Kermit's crew has been missing all these years, someone with proficiency in laser weapons. Also, this page made Lady J appear less hot than she should, and we don't care for that around these parts.
1,000,000 years dungeon!
They may be evoking more the G.I. Joe comics from Marvel in the 80s, hence how often Jay wears a ball cap, but it doesn't feel all that removed from the 80s cartoon, save for most of the aforementioned cheesecake. While designs for locations, gadgets, and tech all look great, I couldn't really make heads or tails of Cobra's base. Both inside and out looked architecturally confusing, like somehow I couldn't process what I was supposed to be seeing. While I get this was all meant in good fun, some popcorn action movie style adventure, the part at the end where Abbey talks about thinking she could stop Cobra solo comes right out of nowhere. Not just because, as I said, she suggested the teams work together, and not just because I'm certain the rest of Danger Girl were working different angles of her mission, but at no point did it seem like going it alone was her driving force, or that she was trying to prove something to herself. She played her part, rolled with the X Factors like Flint and Scarlet's capture, and at no point did she seem to eschew assistance or resent the idea of working with others. I have to think it was just a cheesy excuse for that classic Joe tagline at the end. While there were times where Sydney seemed to show up or surprise soldiers like Duke, some Joes actually got to do stuff, show they weren't there for nothing, but many of them were like Quick Kick, celebrating a victory he played very little part in. But hey, there are so many action figures and only so many pages in a story. While not the most nail-biting read I've ever encountered, the comic used its characters well, had a pretty clever plot, and despite a few head-scratchers, avoided taking itself too seriously. I'm not a big Danger Girl reader, but it remains a solid, entertaining story for all its faults. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.